Just like a lovesick boy. Tick-a-tank, 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 tick-a-tank. I used to hope and sigh and cry, just like a lovesick boy. Tick-a-tank. But joy incessant calls the sense, and love unchanged will cloy. And she became a bore intense unto her lovesick boy. With fitful glimmer burnt my flame as I grew cold and coy. At last one morning I became another's lovesick boy. Tick-a-tank, 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 tick-a-tank. At last one morning I became another's lovesick boy.
I behave like a regular cad, but that sort of thing is all over. I am now a respectable chap, and shine with a virtue resplendent, and therefore I haven't a rap of sympathy with the dependent. He shall treat us with law if there isn't a flaw, singing so merrily, try-la-la, 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 singing so merrily, try-la-la, 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 singing so merrily, try-la-la, 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 singing so merrily, try-la-la.
Silence in court! Silence in court! And all attention lend. Behold your judge in due submission.
All hail, great judge, to your bright praise we never rise, ecstatic praise. All hail, all hail, all hail, all hail. May each decree a statue's rank, and never need weavers in blank. All hail, all hail, all hail, all hail, all hail.
For these kind words accept my thanks, I pray. A breach of promise we've to try today. But firstly, if the time you'll not begrudge, I'll tell you how I came to be a judge.
Tell us how, tell us how.
I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how. Let me speak. Let me speak. Let me speak. Let me speak. Let me speak.
He'll tell us how he
When I, good friends, was called to the bar, I'd an appetite fresh and hearty. But I was as many young barristers are, an impecunious party. I'd a swallowtail coat of a beautiful blue, a brief which I bought of a booby, a couple of shirts and a collar or two, and a ring that looked like a ruby.
A couple of shirts and a collar or two, and a ring that looked like a ruby.
In Westminster Hall I danced like a semi-despondent fury, for I thought I never should hit on a chance of addressing a British story. But I soon got tired of third-class journeys and dinners of bread and water. So I fell in love with the rich attorney's elderly, ugly daughter.
So I fell in love with the rich attorney's elderly, ugly daughter.
The rich attorney, he jumped with joy and replied to my fond professions. You shall reap the reward of your pluck, my boy, at the Bailey and Middlesex sessions. You'll soon get used to her look, said he, and a very nice girl you'll find her. She may very well pass for 43 in the dusk with the light behind her.
She may very well pass for 43 in the dusk with the light behind her.
The rich attorney was good as his word, the briefs came trooping gaily, and every day my voice was heard at the sessions or ancient Bailey. All thieves who could my fees afford relied on my orations, and many a burglar I've restored to his friends and his relations.
Many a burglar he's restored to his friends and his relations.
At length I became as rich as the Gurneys, and Incubus then I fought her. So I threw over that rich attorney his elderly, ugly daughter. The rich attorney, my character high, driving me to discourage.
No!
Yes. And now, if you please, I'm ready to try this breach of promise of marriage.
And now, if you please, he's ready to try this breach of promise of marriage.
For now I'm a judge,
And a good judge too.
yes, now I'm a judge,
And a good judge too.
though all my love be false, yet I'll never budge, but I'll live and die a judge.
And a good judge too.
It was managed by a job,
And a good job too.
it was managed by a job.
And a good job too.
It is patent to the mob that my being made a knob was effected by a job, and a good job too.
Swear thou the jury, kneel, jurymen, all kneel. Oh, will you ever yonder skies, whatever question may arise, twixt rich and poor, twixt low and high, oh, will you well and truly try?
To all of this we make reply. To all of this we make reply. By the slate of yonder sky, that we will well and truly try.
They will well and truly
Where is the plaintiff? Let her now be brought. Oh,
Angelina, come thou into court. Angelina,
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 Comes the broken flower, comes the cheated maid, all the tempest flower, rain and cloud betrayed. Little baby's roses, all her beauty rare, shade the blushing roses, they are passing there, they are passing there. Where the flowers till they fade, happy, happy be thy life, O maid. Where the flowers till they fade, happy be thy life, O maid. Happy be thy life, O maid. Happy, happy be thy life, O maid. For the season vernal, time may cast a shade, sunshine if eternal makes the roses fade. Time may do his duty, let the sea alone. Winter hath a beauty, that is all his own, that is all his own. Fairest days are sun and shade, I am no unhappy maid. Where the flowers till they fade, happy be thy life, O maid. Happy be thy life, O maid. Happy be thy life, maid.
Oh, never, 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 since I joined the human race, saw I so exquisitely fair a face.
a sly dog,
How say you, is she not designed for capture?
We've got one word, my lord, and that is rapture.
Your kindness, gentlemen, quite overpowers.
we love you fondly, and will make you ours.
Ah, sly dogs, ah, sly dogs.
We love you fondly, and would make you ours. Master, dread of fury, there's the judge, and with the jury comes substantial damages, Silence in court. May it please you, my lord, gentlemen of the jury, with a sense of deep emotion, I approach this painful case, for I never had a notion that a man could be so base or deceive
confiding, vows, etc., deriding.
Receive the thrill confiding, vows, etc., deriding.
See my interesting client, victim of a heartless wile. See the traitor, all defiant, wear a supercilious smile. Sweetly smile my client on him, oily wooed and gently won him.
Sweetly smile his client on him, oily wooed and gently won him.
Swiftly fled each honeyed hour, spent with this unmanly male. Camberwell became a bower, Peckham an Arcadian vale. Breathing concentrated Otto, an existence a la Watto.
Breathing concentrated Otto, an existence a la Watto.
Picture then my client naming and insisting on the day. Picture him excuses framing, going from her far away. Doubly criminal to do so, for the maid had bought her trousseau.
Doubly criminal to do so, for the maid had bought her trousseau.
Cheer up, my pretty, oh, cheer up.
Cheer up, cheer up, we love you.
Cheer up, my pretty, oh, cheer up.
Cheer up, we love you.
Cheer up,
That she is reeling is plain to me.
if ain't your feeling, recline on me.
I shall recover if left alone.
Oh, Persia, at home, at home.
Just like a father I wish to be.
Or if you'd rather recline on me.
Fetch some water from far Cologne.
For this I saw to at home, master. Dread our moving, there's a judge and will our jury. Monster, monster, dread our fury.
Oh, gentlemen, listen, I pray, though I own that my heart has been ranging. Of nature the laws I obey, for nature is constantly changing. The moon in her phases is found, the time and the wind and the weather. The months in succession go round, and you don't find 2 Mondays together. Ah, consider the moral, I pray. Don't bring a young fellow to sorrow, who loves this young lady today and loves that young lady tomorrow.
Consider the moral we pray. Don't bring a young fellow to sorrow, who loves his young lady today and loves that young lady tomorrow.
You cannot eat breakfast all day, nor is it the act of a sinner, when breakfast is taken away, to turn his attention to dinner. And it's not in the realm of belief to look upon him as a glutton, who when he is tired of the beef determines to tackle the mutton. Ah, but this I am willing to say, if it will appease her sorrow, I'll marry this lady today, and I'll marry the other tomorrow.
But this he is willing to say, if it will appease her sorrow, he'll marry this lady today, and marry the other tomorrow.
proposition to which I think your client may agree.
But I submit mine with all submission to marry to at once this burglary. In the reign of James II, it was generally reckoned as a rather serious crime to marry two wives at a time.
Oh, man of learning! Oh, man of learning!
A nice dilemma we have here, that calls for all our wit, for all our wit.
And at this stage it doth appear that we can settle it. If I to wed the girl am loth, a priest will surely be.
And if he goes and marries both, it counts as burglary.
A nice dilemma!
We have here a nice dilemma.
A nice dilemma!
We have here a nice dilemma. We have
like a furnace, I'm always in liquor, a ruffian, a bully, a sot. I'm sure I should thrash her, perhaps I should kick her, I am such a very bad lot. I am not prepossessing, as you may be guessing, she couldn't endure me a day. Recall my professing when you are assessing the damages Edwin must pay. I'm sure I should thrash her, perhaps I should kick her.
Gentleman, is one of liquor. You ask for guidance. This is my reply. He says when tipsy, he would thrash and kick her. Let's make him tipsy, gentlemen, and try.
With all respect, I do object.
I do object.
I don't object.
With all respect, I do object.
I do object.
I don't object. With all respect, I do object. I do object. I do object.
All the legal fury sees you, no proposal seems to please you. I can sit up here all day, I'm a shorty getaway. Barristers and you attorneys set out on your homeward journeys. Gentle, simple-minded usher, get you if you like to Russia. Put your briefs upon the shelf. I will marry her, myself.
Devoted on you, he's doted to castle moated, away they go.
I wonder whether they'll live together in marriage tether, in manner true.
It seems to me, sir, such as she, sir, a judge is he, sir, and a good judge too.
Oh, joy unbounded, but well surrounded, the net is sounded of grief and woe.
It seems to me, sir, such as she, sir, a judge is he, sir, and a good judge too.
Oh, joy unbounded, with well surrounded, the net is sounded of grief and woe.
It seems to me, sir, such as she, sir, a judge is he, sir, and a good judge too.
Just now I'm a judge,
and a good judge too.
Just now I'm a judge,
and a good judge too.
Go homeward as you trudge to declare my law is fudge. Yet a beauty I'm a judge,
and a good judge too.
Go defendant is a snob,
and a great snob,
go defendant is a snob,
and a great snob, go defendant is a snob. We'll reward him for his love. So he said the brave was up, and a good
Comedy writer William S. Gilbert was born the 18th of November, 1836, in the same London house where his grandfather had lived. After trying his hand at military service, then civil service, Gilbert became a barrister and soon started an avocation of turning out satirical verses. These Bab's Ballads, as Gilbert called them, later served as the basis for such operettas as HMS Pinafore, Patience, and Iolanthe. And with the success of the ballads, Gilbert found himself earning his living as a writer of comic opera in the burlesque theaters of London. Composer Arthur Sullivan was born in London on May 13, 1842. His father was a clarinetist, and so one might say, Sullivan was born into the world of music. He was one of the youngest boys ever elected into the distinguished elite boys' choir of the Chapel Royal. Arthur culminated his music education with a trip to Europe, where he studied at the musical conservatory of composer Felix Mendelssohn. Sullivan was an avid gambler who hobnobbed with the aristocracy, so it was not surprising that he wrote his first comic opera to pay off a gambling debt. Comic opera was not native to England. It was, in fact, a French form of entertainment and was dominated by the genius of Offenbach, who is still known today for his so-called can-can music. So it was the influence of French burlesque and opera bouffe which ruled English theater before the arrival of Gilbert and Sullivan. It took one English theater entrepreneur, Richard D'Oyley Carte, to envision and create a truly English comic opera tradition. Certainly not a dreamer, Carte's ingratiating manners and shrewd business sense caused people to nickname him Oily Carte. Carte's dream was the creation of a purely English comic opera tradition, not French burlesque, but comic opera for Englishmen, by Englishmen, and about English life and institutions. This was occurring in an age of national awareness. England had spread her flag around the world, and the imposing Queen Victoria was on the throne. In Prussia, the machinations of Prince Otto von Bismarck were uniting the Germans into a centralized state. And in Italy, it was Garibaldi who attempted to rally Italian nationalistic sentiments to create an Italian nation-state. All these, from Carte's dream to Bismarck's realpolitik, were expressions of the same burning nationalistic fever. Most people consider Gilbert and Sullivan's first joint effort to be Trial by Jury, although they had collaborated a few years earlier on an unsuccessful piece entitled Thespis. Trial by Jury was their first work under D'Oyley Carte's management, and the piece was originally commissioned to fill out a program that featured Offenbach's La Petite. Gilbert's lyrics and Sullivan's spoof on Handel's grand opera stylistics were welcomed by high and low brow alike. After the operetta became an overnight hit, Gilbert and Sullivan, still under Carte's management, came up with another success which deals with love potions, The Sorcerer. Then Gilbert decided to go after another venerable English institution, Her Majesty's Royal Navy, from which came HMS Pinafore. Gilbert strove for such realism in the staging of the piece that many could have sworn that the character of the First Lord, Sir Joseph Porter, was the real First Lord of the Navy, Sir W.H. Smith. Pinafore was not an instant success. The London summer heat was driving the theater-goers outdoors to Covent Garden. Luckily, Sullivan was conducting there, and he lured people into seeing Pinafore by incorporating the opera's catchy tunes into his Covent Garden program. It seems that the whole world has loved Pinafore. A wide range of theater companies has performed it, from a children's troupe to an all-black performance of Pinafore in Philadelphia. But an unfortunate side effect of the Pinafore craze was the rash of pirated versions which appeared in the United States. These versions could exist only because there were no international copyright laws at the time. In order to stop these pirated shows, Carte took his company to America to establish legitimate claim under United States copyright laws. It was thinking about these pirated versions of Pinafore that gave Gilbert the idea for their next hit, The Pirates of Penzance, which opened in the United States. Gilbert then decided it would be fun to satirize Oscar Wilde, the leader of the current aesthetic fanatics. And so another success entitled Patience was born. While Patience played on one side of town, Carte bestowed upon Gilbert and Sullivan a distinction enjoyed at that time by only the great grand opera composer Richard Wagner. They were to have a theater built exclusively for the production of their works. Built near the Savoy Chapel, the new theater came to be called the Savoy Theatre and had the last word in theatrical architecture. In fact, the Savoy was the first London theater to be illuminated entirely by electricity. And, of course, it also featured the Carte brand of Victorian extravagance. Patience closed, then reopened in the all-new Savoy Theatre to the oohs and ahs of the approving London theater audience. But all was not well. Sullivan was thrown into a deep depression over the death of his mother. With her death, and the death of his brother Fred some years before, Sullivan was completely without family. It was with sober, intense energy that Sullivan threw himself into writing the music for the next opera, Iolanthe, a piece which takes place in fairyland and Parliament. Then Prime Minister Gladstone, under the direction of Queen Victoria, bestowed upon Sullivan the honor of knighthood. This, of course, pleased Sullivan and his aristocratic friends, but it only served to widen the developing fracture over artistic concerns developing between him and Gilbert. Princess Ida, their next work, was almost not written because of the bickering that broke out, and Carte at this point proved to be more of a hindrance than a help in getting the two back together. It was during this particular feud that they came up with the idea for a piece that would take place halfway around the world, in Japan. The Mikado, as it came to be called, reflected the wide range of British imperial interest that grew out of Victorian nationalism. The Mikado was, and still remains, one of the greatest of the Gilbert and Sullivan successes. And today we have a film version of it that was made by the modern-day D'Orly Carte Opera Company. Unfortunately, the Mikado was followed by a comparable atrocity entitled Ruddigore, which was poorly received. Audiences took offense with the title, for they felt that the word ruddy was too close a resemblance with the English taboo word bloody. The piece had dramatic problems, the third act was too long, and, well, Gilbert thought of renaming it Kensington, or Not So Good as the Mikado. Gilbert and Sullivan then wrote The Yeoman of the Guard, with which they regained some of their former success. But it was not until after Yeoman that the two really had another big success with the Gondoliers. The idea for the Gondoliers came from an actual incident in Gilbert's life when, as a baby, he had been kidnapped by gondoliers in Venice, then returned to his father after the payment of a proper ransom. Quite an incident in one's life, and no wonder it took almost the entire length of Gilbert's life to objectify the experience into a comic opera. The Gondoliers represents the last successful work of the Gilbert and Sullivan collaborations. The extravaganzas became less a joy and increasingly a bother. The fracture between the two men, with Carte ineffectual in keeping them together, had grown too wide. Now, some prefer to end their discussion of Gilbert and Sullivan at this point. However, the bad feelings were mended, and they collaborated on two more works, Utopia Limited and The Grand Duke. These obscure pieces did not match Gilbert and Sullivan's previous successes. Nonetheless, Gilbert and Sullivan did create their own genre of theater, and their collaborations, nearly 20 years of work, stand as a monument to English musical theater.
Devoted on you, he's doted to castle moated, away they go. I wonder whether they'll live together in marriage tether, in manner true. It seems to me, sir, such as she, sir, a judge is he, sir, and a good judge too.
Oh, joy unbounded, but well surrounded, the knell is sounded on grief and woe.
It seems to me, sir, such as she, sir, a judge is he, sir, and a good judge too.
Oh, joy unbounded, with well surrounded, the knell is sounded on grief and woe.
It seems to me, sir, such as she, sir, a judge is he, sir, and a good judge too.
Just now I'm a judge,
And a good judge too.
just now I'm a judge,
And a good judge too.
Go homeward as you trudge, you declare my law is fudge, yet a beauty I'm a judge,
And a good judge too.
Go defendant is a snob,
And a great sound too.
defendant is a snob,
And a great sound too. Defendant is a